Heidi Cooper from Torah Family Living, and I am super excited to actually have a guest on the video today. This is Greg Witter. He is an author of several books, and he's working on a lot more. He wants to help us in the Torah community to have a very solid Hebraic understanding of Scripture, rather than what we have been taught in the church through various religions. And so I'm very excited to be working with him to get his books in print and get them out and available to you. And tonight, we're going to talk about his first book, which is a Bible study guide. It's a workbook designed to guide you through a study of the topic, and it is called The Renewed Covenant, Living Elohim's Law Within Us. And before we get into this interview, thank you, by the way, Greg, for being with us tonight. I wanted to let you all know that I will be hosting a book study on this book every Monday night starting on March 17th. And we're going to just go through each chapter and talk about what jumps out at us, ask questions, work through it together. And this is geared for ladies. And Greg will hopefully very soon be able to put one together that's geared more for men. So be looking for that. So I'd like to just ask you some questions about your book tonight and learn more about what your goal is with it and what you hope that all of us will take away from it. So welcome, Greg. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure always to work with you. Thank you very much for all of your efforts in making this possible. We're all about building the kingdom
Absolutely.
and building the truth, building the foundation. And so everything that I write, everything that I talk about, my speaking, we're going to be opening up some training, discipleship training and coaching that's all about developing you to be the most that you can be for your Messiah, Savior, and King, and building that kingdom. So that's what I'm about. It's about helping people, including myself. I learn a lot as I go through and do this. But it's about edifying the community, exhorting the community, building the community so that they're on a foundation that when the storms come, and we know they're coming, we're not blown away as if built on sinking sand.
Right. All right, thank you. All right, I have some questions for you that I think will help everyone get a better idea of what to expect in this first book. First, what inspired you to even write a book about the concept of a renewed covenant?
Well, as I studied over the years, what I thought I knew changed. It kept making a transition from misunderstanding to understanding. And it wasn't an overnight thing. And then I began to understand more, or as I began to understand more, and I was talking with people online and they were, no, this is not. And I'm going, oh, yes, it is. And I started building the Hebrew foundation. I found out what the new covenant and how misunderstood it is, and that it is a Kadash covenant. Seeing it as a replacement rather than divine is not correct from its original intentions and promises. So I wanted to provide a scripturally sound, from a Hebraic perspective, that reveals how Yahushua fulfills the Torah, internalizing it within the believers through the Ruach HaKodesh, so that we can get rid of these way too many other doctrines that are out there. We can clean up and get rid of the baggage, if you will, and return back from the twisted to the untwisted truth and back to the ancient paths. We need to get back to what was intended from the beginning. And it took me many years of study and research, time and effort, but little by little I got to start and see things coming together, grasping the truth. This is my attempt to try to explain it. And that's the easiest way I know, so that we can build a solid foundation.
So I know that word replacement, that's one that a lot of us were taught is the idea that the new covenant replaces Torah. How does your book then refute that concept?
Well, this belief stems basically from a misunderstanding and a theological basis, partly coming out of the replacement theology. Okay. Jeremiah 31 through 33 clearly states that the covenant is about writing that Torah on our hearts, not abolishing it, not changing it, not modifying it, but that Yahushua himself declared in Matthew 5:17 and 18 that he came to fulfill, not to destroy. He is
Ah,
building it, showing how Torah remains foundational
hmm
and is now spirit empowered rather than externally imposed. It dwells in us, through us, it comes out and does its work. So true salvation is the restoration of the covenant relationship and to walk in its instructions with the Creator, walking as Yahushua walked.
absolutely. Absolutely. So you use that word. I know there's words that are similar. That word kadash. What is the significance of that word in understanding how the covenant works?
I love the Hebrew. I love the Paleo Hebrew and digging into that. And so we do that in my studies. The Hebrew word kadash or kadash can mean both new and renewed, but it's much like the new moon. Kodesh is a renewal, not a brand new moon, but a recycling moon.
Mm-hmm.
It continues the cycle. It's a new cycle. It's not a new moon every time,
Right.
but it's a recycled, restored, refreshed, rebuilt moon.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand this. This is a key to understanding the covenant, that the renewed covenant restores and revitalizes Yahu's original relationship with his people by inscribing this Torah within us,
Mm.
renewing it and writing it on our heart, aligning perfectly with Ezekiel 36:26 through 27. My book explores this in depth, providing Elohim's instructions to the remnant and our ability to obey this transformation through Yahuwah's Ruach HaKodesh, that set apart spirit. At a deeper level, it is to restore, repair the broken. We are redeemed, saved, and restored. This is the true gospel. This is the true covenant.
I love your emphasis on this is how we're to walk. This is how we're to live as a result. Um,
Well, believe me, I don't have it all figured out yet, and I'm still learning to walk as he walked. It's a daily thing that
yes,
we must do.
Torah is a journey. Absolutely.
It is.
Okay, so I know a lot of people, particularly as they first start realizing that the beginning of the Bible still matters, they come across people who are going to then throw right back at them. Well, Paul said, Torah's done away with. How do you address the whole Paul said Torah's done away with. How do you address that in your books? I know people need to be well armed and being able to explain their beliefs on that.
And we do. We need to study to show ourselves to be approved. And so that we don't have to think about an answer.
Mhm.
We already know the answer.
Right.
And this infuriates people that I talk to all the time online because Well, you're not listening to me. No, I've already thought this through. But that's a great question. One of the biggest misinterpretations of scripture is how people understand Paul and they get into this Pauline doctrine. Paul himself said in Romans 3:31, do we nullify the Torah through faith? May it never be, he says. On the contrary, we uphold the Torah. The issue Paul tackled was legalism and the misuse of Torah for justification, not Torah itself. In my book, and I have a book coming out or is out on the book of Romans, and we're going to be going through the book of Acts here very soon and some others. Paul actually teaches Torah, not only to the Jews, but we see him teaching Torah to the Gentiles. And so I break down the key misunderstood passages like Galatians 3, Romans 8, proving that Paul upheld the Torah as a guide for righteousness, living under the Ruach HaKodesh, the set apart spirit, living through his instructions. So we look at the writings of Paul, Shaul, and that he wasn't starting something new or different.
Right, absolutely.
And we need to have building that strong foundation by teaching others the instructions.
Right. That's, I think, foundational to comprehend. And along with that is, as we're looking at Yeshua and what part he plays in the covenant as a mediator and the other roles that he plays. Go ahead and talk on that for a minute.
Sure. In Hebrews 7:17, we see a whole lot of information. Yahushua is the high priest of the order of Melchizedek. He is of the royal priesthood, meaning he bridges the gap between us and Yahuwah, securing our covenant relationship by his atoning blood, and that ratifies the covenant. And we go into how this is my body, this is my blood, actually goes back to the Old Testament and brings out what it takes to establish a covenant. And it is a blood covenant, and that it is his blood that he is using to renew, restore, and refresh the broken covenant. Just as Moses sprinkled blood on the first covenant in Exodus 24:8, this is a covenant of blood. Unlike the Levitical system, he offers an eternal and perfect covenant, ensuring forgiveness and empowering obedience. My book explains this and his role as mediator, transforming our access to Elohim, to Yahuwah.
Yes, I've already been working through the book, and the connections between how do you say it in Hebrew? Is it Melchizedek, the high priest?
I say it Melchizedek, but
I know it actually. Melech is king and Zedek is righteousness. That's how I remember it. The connections between them and Yeshua, you explained, and it's just kind of it's fascinating. Okay, so another question then would be, how does Torah then work with this concept of a renewed covenant? How does that work together?
The Torah remains the divine instructions that are given to us. They don't change. They don't go away. They're not nullified. They're not put away. The difference is that under the renewed covenant, it is written on our hearts instead of tablets of stone. We see that in Jeremiah 31:33. The Ruach HaKodesh enables us as believers to walk in obedience, naturally making Torah a joyful lifestyle. It takes some work and it takes some learning. And, I've been doing it now for 20 5 years-ish, give or take. And, you know, as I've learned, as I've built the foundation, as I've gathered and from practice, I now find it a joyful lifestyle. Wasn't always, and we always go through our trials and tests, and it gets hard, it gets easy, and so on and so forth. But it's all about preparing us for what's yet to come. So rather than an external legal code, as many of us try to put this in our mind, it becomes indwelled in us, and it just naturally flows out of us. So my book clarifies that obedience is not about earning salvation, but about reflecting Yahuwah's holiness and walking as Yahushua walked. John 1 or 1 John 2:6 actually talks about this in some detail.
Mhm. And that's just such a beautiful, beautiful picture that it's coming from the inside in this renewed covenant rather than, well, an external force like we saw with just, like you said, with just the tablets of stone. The Hebrews 8:13 has this phrase vanishing away. And how do you correct that misunderstanding of people like to grab onto that's done away with, now we're in something new? How do you address that in your book?
What a great question, because many assume that this means the Torah is abolished,
Right.
but that's a false assumption. In the book, we go into some details. If you actually go back and look at the Greek manuscripts there, the word covenant isn't in those verses.
Hmm.
Okay? It's not talking about the covenant vanishing away, but if you take it in context with the verses around it, it's talking about the old Aaronic priesthood vanishing away because it was old. It didn't do its job. It failed. And if you understand the writing of the and timing of the writing of the book of Hebrews, it's before the temple was destroyed in 70 AD.
Mm-hmm.
So what was vanishing away was the temple, the priesthood that existed, and all of that was going to go away. Now it's going to come back.
I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
Okay. It's going to come back in the millennial kingdom.
Hmm.
We know there's going to be a temple. We know there's going to be a priesthood. We know those things. But for right now, there isn't. We have a high priest in Yahushua. He dwells in us. He gives us the Ruach HaKodesh. He guides us, lights the path for us if we submit to him and to the covenant. So my book addresses this in some detail, proving that Yahushua upholds the Torah while offering a better priesthood, a higher priesthood with better promises.
I think that shows too the value of having someone who comprehends the original languages better than someone who, like, we know just enough to be dangerous, right? To walk us
I
through
resemble that.
to walk us through where these errors are coming from, and often it is a translation issue. So I've noticed, yeah, there's in the book that several of these things are addressed. So I really appreciate that. I know the answer to this next question, but I want to give you a chance to answer it. Can Gentiles be part of the renewed covenant?
Absolutely.
And amen for that.
Yes. Praise Yah, for he is most gracious unto us. Paul does a good job of explaining in Romans 11 how Gentiles are grafted in, not just sojourners that are part of, but still on the outside, but truly grafted into Israel, becoming part of Israel's olive tree.
Right.
One day maybe I'll give my testimony because I'm adopted.
Hmm.
And it is how Father showed me what it means to be grafted in.
Hmm.
And it's a very powerful understanding. And I try to bring that out in this study because it's not replacing, but it's becoming co-heirs in the covenant, being adopted, being grafted into and part of the family. We're not on the front porch eating with the dogs.
It's,
Okay, we get to sit at the king's table.
yeah.
We're not sleeping out in the barn. He's prepared a house for us in his, or a room for us, if you will, in his house.
Right.
So Yah's ways we must embrace, and we must embrace inclusion in the covenant, not rejecting Torah. My book works, and I work hard to clarify that the Gentiles are called to walk in obedience alongside Yahudim and to
Hmm.
become part of Ephraim and under Yahushua's priesthood.
I like to I like to reference Ruth as a beautiful picture of the outsider can come in and become part of Israel and part of the family. That's, yeah, always a beautiful
Absolutely. There's
picture.
many great
Yeah.
examples of that, Ruth being one
Right.
of the better. But
Right. Just so
you have the
beautiful.
harlot too in
Rahab,
Rahab.
which
There's
people,
another example of being grafted in and
right. People
becoming
may not
part.
realize that she was actually Ruth's mother-in-law.
Yes, yes, she was.
Ah. All right. I try to always stress application, so this next question has a bit to do with that. What practical steps do you recommend for believers to walk in this renewed covenant as we get better understanding of it? What do we then do from there? How do we walk it out?
Well, that's a great question, and that's really what I'm all about,
Mhm.
is trying to help believers to become disciples and to walk in the covenant, to walk in obedience, to walk in truth, to walk as Yahushua walked. And so, we have to align our life with his word. We have to study the Torah and Yahushua's teachings. We have to be able to take them from the Old Testament into the New Testament, from the New Testament back to the Old Testament. We need to get these in our mind so that we don't think about them anymore. We automatically know the answer. We're supposed to study to show ourselves approved. And that means that we have it put in our mind that so that when we stand before kings and people of power and so on and so forth and are questioned, we don't have to think about what we're going to say. The Ruach HaKodesh already has put it in our mind. We've studied and shown ourselves approved, and now he can bring it out as he sees fit so that we can be the true witness and testimony of our Messiah, Savior, and King.
And I imagine that's part, as we are studying and understanding these truths, that's part of him writing that Torah on our hearts too.
It absolutely is.
That's kind of
It,
our part, right?
it's our part. We have to
Right.
walk in obedience through love, not legalism.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's easy to get pulled one way or the other. Okay. But we have to be spirit empowered in devotion to what we're doing and who we serve because we serve the Most High. And we're all broken vessels, some a little broken, more broken than others. But he, if we allow him, will use us in our brokenness to fulfill his will and his work. We have to reject the pagan and the traditions of men and return to the ancient paths to Yahuwah's appointed times and commandments and walk as the instructions have been given to us. We have to live as lights to others. Don't cover it with a basket. Be on the hill. Trim our wicks, fill our lamps with oil so that we can be and exemplify the covenant from our daily lives. And it shows naturally in what we're doing and what we're saying. When we go to the grocery store, when we go, out to eat, when we are at the barber shop, so on and so forth, that example just naturally just comes out of our pores even, and it becomes a natural thing. So my book, includes reflection questions and exercises to help believers apply these truths. And it's something that we learn. I like to teach street ministry, but it's not standing on the corner screaming at people as they walk by. Street ministry is being the example, quiet, having discussion with others in the line, waiting for the pizza, whatever it is that we're about at the gas station, that it's just a natural conversation for us.
Right.
That's street ministry.
Yes, that they see our walk, and it should pique their interest. It should. Yeah. So then, as people are going through this book, what is like the one key takeaway that you want people to walk away with after having studied about this concept of the renewed covenant?
Well, the most important thing to understand is it is not a replacement, but a restoration of Yahuwah's divine plan. It is about spirit-empowered obedience, not lawlessness. Yeshua didn't come to erase the Torah. He came to write it on our hearts and to empower us to live in and through it in truth and love. It is my hope that the readers and studiers that use this study guide will be awakened to the fullness of what Yahuwah's covenant is all about, rejecting the false doctrines and walking boldly in truth so that the light may shine in this dark world. We are scattered. We are Ephraim, scattered amongst the Gentiles. We are going to, as we wake up, we become the lights to those around us. Now, most of them don't like the light, but that's neither important or unimportant. We still have to do that.
Right.
And so that's the most important thing, that as we learn and grow, that we become the ambassadors, the witnesses, and the truth, not so much being shouted from the mountaintop or on the street corners that everybody walks by, but in example, so that we're not going to win many, but we can draw few and reach those that the Father has prepared for us to reach through his Ruach HaKodesh, through him and his power that dwells in us.
And we want to make sure we're an instrument of them being wooed and not a stumbling block that drives them away. Yeah.
Correct. We can't beat them over the head. We can't force the issue. There are a lot of people that try. This has to be done in gentle kindness and love. Now, we have to be able to refute their questions, their arguments, their debates, and it's not always as may seem as loving as maybe some would think it should be, but to reprimand a child is love.
Right.
To reprimand someone who is, outside of the covenant, to try to draw them in, is done in love. And that's what we're about. That's our mission. That's our purpose as disciples.
Right. Right. I've used this illustration before. There's a difference between sugarcoating and seasoning with salt. Sugarcoating is all about look at me, look at what I know, look at what I can say. Whereas when we season our words with salt, we genuinely want it to be received by the other person. So we're going to present it in a way that they can actually understand and receive it. So that's obviously what we want to do. And I want to encourage all of you. Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing this with us. That we need to be studying. We need to be solid on our understanding. We should not be, I'm not sure I don't have, yeah, sometimes we don't have an answer, but we should be seeking to get answers. And so I am so excited that Greg has undertaken this great project this is just the first in a series of Bible study guides to help us to be students, to help us to be prepared with truth. So again, this is the first book, The Renewed Covenant. All of his books, the ones that he already has released and future ones, are available at my website, torahfamilyliving.com. So you can purchase copies. We encourage you to get multiple copies, start a group study. They're perfect for a group study. They are spiral bound workbooks, so they're very easy for you to work through, writing your notes. That's what I'm doing. I'm jotting all the notes, marking things, highlighting things, which is what we want you to do. We want you to really get in there, grapple with it, work through it, make it your own. And to help you get started with that, I just want to remind you again, I will be hosting a book study on YouTube every Monday night starting on March 17th. I'll be doing that in the evening, so make sure that you are subscribed so you'll be notified when I go live. And that'll be for the ladies to work through each chapter together. And stay tuned. We'll be doing more of these interviews as more books are released to, again, help us to be solid in our understanding of truth. And I'm super excited at what is in the works and what is coming. So again, make sure that you are paying attention. Greg, if you could tell people where they can find you and what you are doing beyond even just this book series.
Sure. You can find me at ephraimscry.com. Okay, and we're in the process. Our website is getting brought online, and we're going to have a lot of things for people. I write blog posts, teachings every day. Somebody will ask a question online. Well, okay, I have to answer it. I turn that into a blog post so that I can not just share the response to the individual, but I can make it available for all. All right. I have more work than I can do in the next year. We're also developing, like I said earlier, a discipleship coaching process or training, or however you want to say it. It's no light piece of work. Okay. It's going to be deep and it's going to be difficult. And even as I'm putting the materials together for it, I have to stop, go talk to Father. Okay. Because it's designed to cause us to stop and think. And even in me putting it together, it's making me go stop and think and spend time with the Father. It's very enlightening, but it's not an easy task. It's going to demand some price. And so, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is to take it and be part of it. I'm sorry, but that makes you or holds you responsible. You've invested in it. But you're also going to have to do the work. I'm doing the work to build it, put it together, teach it, coach it, and I have some other coaches. Heidi's going to be our ladies coach, at least initially, till we can get some other ladies up to speed, or maybe they can take some of that pressure because, quite frankly, Heidi's already got her plate full. But she's looking forward to that. And then she'll be able to help mentor those ladies into expanding that side of the ministry, her ministry, their ministry, and being disciples. And then we'll work together with the men later in the process. We actually bring the ladies and gentlemen together to work together because it's teams. And we're hoping that husbands and wives will take this at the same time, and we'll give great discounts for that so
That'd be
that it can be affordable, because we want husband and wives working together to share the gospel, the true gospel of the kingdom. And so that's why we're developing this discipleship training. All of the blog posts that I'm doing and all of that are going to get posted up there. We're starting. Here's our first video, if you will. So we're going to start getting into video and a whole lot more. This, some of this stuff's going to be available by PDF. So, I want to teach on that subject. Well, you can download that PDF. It's got question and answers. It's got, insights, all kinds of things that you can use to share that gospel with the people in your community, your ecclesia, and help raise them up, lift them up, edify them, and bring them along so that you all can be strong in the faith.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to, not just, I'm keeping Shabbat. There's so much more to it, so much more to learn, so much. Yes, it's a good thing. It's all good things coming. And again, thank you, Greg, for sharing this with us. And everyone, please stay tuned because, as he said, there's so much more to come. And I will put whatever link to whatever I can think that will be helpful to you down in the description. So make sure you check those out. And we will see you soon. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
It's been my pleasure.